Hello everyone, welcome to Arizona Billwatch for another lively discussion of important and controversial bills. I am your host, Jose Borrajero. Thank you for watching. There is a lot going on at the Capitol these days, so stay tuned because we have a fantastic show for you today. But before we do that, some housekeeping items. Number one, we would love for you to watch the whole show from beginning to end. However, you may also fast forward to the bills of your choice by using the handy chart that we have placed down below. Secondly, if you like what you see, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot to us. Third, it costs money to do what we do. So if you like what you see, you may contribute by going to our website, azpeopleslobbyist.com. So with all that out of the way, let's look at the first bill. House Bill HB 2442. Short title, School Immunizations, Exclusions. This bill will be heard in the Senate Health and Human Services Committee on the 12th, and it was introduced by Representative Montenegro. And this is a relatively simple bill, although it is controversial. It simply adds to the list of immunizations that are not required or should not be required for school attendance. And what it adds to the list is immunizations, vaccines, or so-called vaccines that have not been fully approved by the FDA. These things that are done on an emergency basis, which are not really tested, we should not use the kids as guinea pigs. And so this is, in my opinion, a good bill, but I don't know what you guys would think about it.
In my opinion, it's a good bill also, and it does address in here the emergency youth authorization when that's been issued, and I'm for this bill because I don't.
Yeah, the emergency use applies when there's such a dire emergency that
like
we cannot.
COVID.
Yeah, well, we cannot wait until this thing is fully tested and approved and so on. So we have to use it right away. And of course, that opens up the possibility that there may be some bad effects. And it's bad enough that it happens to grown-ups, so we don't want it happening to kids.
Right, and our kids shouldn't be guinea pigs.
Right. Archie?
Well, I think it's a good idea. I think it's something that goes along with what the director can do. But I think it's just a tad overbroad. You see, if it was limited to giving the director of education the discretion to say yes or no, with then an oversight on that discretion, I would say yes, that's good. But this makes an automatic prohibition. And before you can say that an automatic prohibition is the thing to do, I think you have to kind of understand what the nature of the disease is. It could be that the disease is such that, we need an automatic reaction to it. And I just think it's overbroad, that's all.
And I'm going to disagree with you on that because when it comes to the health, especially the health in government, when it comes to that, I don't think that an automatic emergency, because in that case, everything's an emergency to the government. So that's where I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Okay, now I'm going to respond to that.
Okay.
And, there is, and I can't remember what the name of the disease is called, but it's coming out of Africa, and it is the hemophiliac blood disease. And it's 100% fatality rate. Now, if that all of a sudden hits the United States, are you going to say you do not want an emergency vaccine against that for our school kids? I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily a good idea.
Well, and as a parent, you got to weigh the options on should you or should you not, because sometimes the fix is worse, can be just as bad as the problem. If that makes sense.
I understand. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm for this bill.
Okay, and keep in mind that this does not prohibit the use of the so-called vaccine. all it says is that it cannot be required for
Required.
school attendance. So if the disease is so dire that you need to do this, you can still do it.
Right, it's up to the parent.
It's just that you cannot be prevented from going to school if you don't.
Right.
So it's not what you characterized it as, Archie. You don't have to do it. You can have the vaccine if that's what you want. So,
So,
in
so
light
where
of,
are you at on this?
My thought hasn't changed, it's still overbroad.
Okay, so
It
let's
depends-
do,
It depends on the nature of the vaccine and the nature of the disease, before you can,
Yeah,
see,
but
this
the argument-
automatically says you can't do it.
but what it says that you cannot do it is require for school attendance.
Right.
Right.
So it's not like you're prohibited from using it. It's just that you cannot be
cannot
required
require it.
as a requirement for school assistance.
I
which is
fully
which is
understand that.
totally different from the argument that if it's a dire enough disease that it should be applied.
Right.
It's a total different argument.
So with that being said, are you for this bill or against it?
Well, I will tell you again, I think it's overbroad, and
Okay.
So-
to make an automatic prohibition, I think is just too broad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
There should not be automatic prohibition of preventing somebody from allowing you to go to school unless you have the vaccine. Okay, fine. If that's your position, that's fine. You're against. Both of us are for. House Bill HB 2621. Short title, Sovereign Authority Border Health Crisis. This bill would be in the Senate Health and Human Services Committee on the 12th, and it was introduced by Representative Montenegro. It deems that the trafficking of fentanyl across Arizona's border is a public health crisis and directs the Arizona Department of Health Services to do everything within its power to address the crisis. That's a good idea, I think. What's bad about it is that what happens if the director of the Department of Health Services does not do it? Nothing happens. Of course, that is a common occurrence with a lot of our bills, but Gloria, what do you think?
I'm going to defer to Archie first
Uh-oh.
on your opinion.
No, I think this is a good first step. The problem with it is that I don't think our people who introduced this bill made it quite as clear as it needs to be. We've got a real problem, and if you watch the State of the Union address last night, you can see that the federal government, and whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they have no interest in protecting us at our southern border. They're not going to take any steps to do that, so the state needs to start doing it. Now, my problem with it is, a few years ago, I did some research, and I discovered that the Sinaloa cartel was renting office space in the city of Phoenix. Do they still rent office space? Then, why don't we start to name some of these individuals and say, this is a terrorist organization? And does it apply to MS-13? Does it apply to this new gang that's coming out of Venezuela? I think we need to we just need to tighten it up a little bit and be a little bit more specific, but I think it's a good step.
Okay, and I agree with that, and I was thinking the same thing as you were. There was no teeth in it.
Yeah, it doesn't go far enough. That's basically what it is. Simply by saying, hey, you got to do everything in your power to address this crisis, it's not getting to the root of the problem.
The legislature never puts any teeth in their
Right,
bills.
and something.
Right, but we can still complain about it every time they
Well,
do
I
it.
agree, yeah.
And so I still don't know where you both are. I think I know where you are, but this is one of those that this is really important. So because it doesn't go far enough, that's why I think this needs to be amended or whatever, and that's why I'm a no on this.
It's a good first step, that's all I said, yes. But it needs to go further, and we're going to be later today discussing another bill that's of the same vein, and we'll get back into it later today.
So I'm a no on this because I think it needs a lot of work, or some work.
Hobbs is going, if it passes, Hobbs is going to veto it,
Yes, that's true.
so.
Well, if we look
And
at-
even with the work, Hobbs would still veto it.
Yeah, right. No, we cannot worry about what Hobbs is going to veto, because she's going to veto. If it's a good bill, she'll veto it. So it's that simple. All we have to do is do our due diligence, and she'll have to wear the veto, hopefully next election time.
So are we two no's, there are two yeses and a no?
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
Okay.
Okay. House Bill HCR 2032. Short title, Voting Centers, Precinct Voting. It would be heard in the Senate Elections Committee on the 11th, which I believe is Monday, introduced by Representative Jones. And basically what it does is that it limits the number of voters in precincts to 1,000 registered voters, and prohibits the use of voting centers. This is a good idea, I think. The problem is the execution, like so many other instances. There is another referral bill. This, by the way, is a referral bill, meaning that if it passes both chambers, it doesn't go to the governor. It goes to the people for a vote, yes or no, and that would be in the 2024 general election. We have an identical bill, which is not a referral. It's HB 2547. That one is certain to be vetoed by the governor. So that's why the HCR bill, because that one cannot be vetoed. The only people that can veto that is you, the
You,
public.
people.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, what do you guys think?
Well, this is a 15-page bill with all of the amendments and deletions and all of that, and it really accomplishes nothing. It increases the number of precincts from, I think we're currently at around 2,400 precincts to 4,100 precincts, so that's an additional 1,700 precincts that it's creating.
Because it's
But it
getting
doesn't
rid
address
of.
the staffing or the costs of those precincts. It eliminates entirely voting centers, and it eliminates early voting centers. So if in the past election, I go to the precinct to vote. I have always done that. I will never do a mail-in ballot. But sometimes I will go to an early voting center, and I did so in the last election. But now I can't do that because this prohibits the use of the early voting centers. And it doesn't address any of the costs. And it's an attempt, I suppose, to do good, but it doesn't do that. So
Well, do you think,
I'm against it.
and I know where you're at with the cost part of it. Do you think that, though not addressed in here, their thought is that if they're not staffing the voting centers, that cost will go on to the precincts?
No, they don't address costs at all,
Right.
staffing at all. So that's just a matter that's totally up to
Right.
conjecture. You don't know what it is they intend, and they don't tell you
And
what
they-
they
right.
intend.
Well, I don't know how precinct voting would be more expensive than voting
centers.
center cost. I mean, if you're going to do it properly, if you're going to have the manpower that you need to use, there's no difference whether you call it a voting center or a precinct. The only difference is that this would be within the precinct, as opposed to all over the city or all over the county. What I'm afraid is that when it comes to the early voting, that we have that the genie is out of the bottle, and we're not going to be able to put it back in. There's too many people who now are used to going to the voting center, who are used to doing early voting, and it's not going to be outside of this bubble. It is not popular to put any kind of restriction as opposed to the time and so on. The whole idea here is that you should have voting only one day by precinct, paper ballots, count them the same day, and all. This is all very good, well and good. Not wrong with that, except the execution of
Right.
it, and getting the support of the general public. And I'm not talking about people like you and me. We're talking about the vast majority of people out there who are too lazy to go vote for 1 hour every 2 years.
Right.
And they need all of this other stuff. So,
Yeah, and I have to say that with you saying that, yeah, this was all in the plan on how to make it so that this does continue on. Because when you make something easy for somebody, they don't want to go back to something hard.
Well, I mean, you have to take this into consideration. I mean, there are any number of bills that are dealing with elections and voting. And you have to take this into consideration with all of those other bills that may be out there that are dealing with it. I don't know if anybody is particularly aware of it, but there's a bill that's been pending in the Senate that has been approved and is now going over to the House under the Transfer of the Bills Act, which is going to change the date and time for our elections. It's going to change from August to May. Why? All right,
The
well,
primary?
yeah.
Oh, okay. And I know a lot of people have been wanting that change, that they want it earlier than later.
It's going to go to the second week of May.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why? Well, I mean, what's the purpose?
I guess because a lot of people feel that they'd rather know who is the person moving on to the election, and it gives them more time to get their message out and everything.
No,
That's what I'm understanding.
if you're talking about the changing of the primary date, the reason for that is that we have now a situation where we're more likely to have a hand count, or a recount, I should say, if a certain percentage is off. And in order to do that timely, we need to get the primary earlier because there have been changes in the federal law. So we had to adjust to the federal law, and that's what this is all about.
Oh, okay.
So the change in the dates, do not blame that on anyone but the federal government. Okay? So it is what it is, and we have to deal with it. This bill it's a totally different animal. We're talking about where you go and when you go and that sort of thing. It doesn't change any dates and it doesn't change any deadlines. So on the basis of that, I'd say that this is a good idea, but it's an idea that is not likely to pass muster with the majority of the voters.
And I agree with that. So
I don't.
is this
Until you start to address the costs and all of that involved with it, then
So you think, well, again, I get back to the question, is it more costly to have people voting at a precinct level, or is it more costly or the same to vote at the voting center?
Well, I think 1,700 precincts statewide is going to be more than, say, 30 voting centers statewide. So, I mean, Maricopa County, I think, at our last election had a maximum of 5 voting centers. All right.
Okay. So
Well,
you are the poster child for what I am saying here, namely that the general public out there ain't going to go for this. So and that's one of my concerns.
So where do you go on this?
Oh, I'm neutral on this.
Neutral?
Personally, I couldn't care one way or the other. I vote by mail, so it doesn't matter to me. But I'm looking at what the general public, the average voter out there, and I think that they're not in sync with this.
Okay. So this is kind of an up in the air one.
Right. House Bill HCR 2049, yes, HCR 2049, short title, Ballot Measures Challenge. This will be heard in the Senate Elections Committee on the 11th, introduced by Representative Carter. And it allows a person to bring an action in the Superior Court that challenges the constitutionality of a proposed constitutional amendment and measures. And what this does, it's something that I think is extremely important, that we decide ahead of time whether something is constitutional or not, as opposed to putting it on the ballot, going through all the problems, and then spend a whole lot of time after all the work has been done, because somebody brings a challenge, and then we spend years litigating this thing. Was it constitutional? Was it not? It's much better. We're much better off not going that route until we have some kind of assurance. Now, you can never prevent somebody from suing you. They can do that no matter what. But at least you can reduce the probability by making sure that we have good reason to believe that the measure or the amendment, this applies to both constitutional amendments and measures. In other words, it applies also to regular statutes. We should know whether this thing is good or not before we ask people to vote on it. So, Archie, what do you think?
Well, my problem is that it amends the Constitution, and I do not like amending the Constitution in this way. My other problem with it is that it only relates to initiatives. What about referendums? What about the references by members of the state legislature? So they're exempting themselves from this, but the changes that are being brought by members of the public, then, well, we've got to have a determination as to whether or not it's constitutional.
Wait a second. I thought it applied to both.
Don't.
Okay.
Nowhere in it does it use the word referendum. It just does not use that.
Well, no, but it applies to any
Initiative, measures, or amendments.
Yes.
That would apply to legislation brought by the legislature, but not to a referendum, which then is approved by the public vote. There is a difference. There is a distinction.
I stand corrected. If this does not apply to something that's initiated by the legislature, then of course I'm against that. But my understanding was that it applied to anything that's put to the voters. So I stand corrected.
Well, I mean, also, and it talks about you have to bring this within 100 days, but if you go back over and you look at paragraph 3, it says, decide the case immediately. What does immediately mean? In legal parlance, that could be, hey, it's 6 months from now. That's immediate,
now we're talking
on our ballot.
Yeah, we're not talking now about the meat of the bill. We're talking about deficiencies within the bill, and that applies to every bill that we discuss.
Well, I understand, but I mean, this says you have to bring this lawsuit, and the court has to consider it immediately, right? Immediately.
Well, the reason for that is that there is a timeline here. You have to print the ballot, you have to do all of these things before the election.
I understand, but we don't know what immediately means.
It doesn't give
And it immediately
time.
means something different in a court of law than it may do to you and I about going out and buying a pizza. Immediately may be 30 minutes with you and I and buying a pizza, but it may be 6 months in hearing a court case.
Right.
So what does immediately mean? It just needs some clarification, that's all.
So it needs clarification. I like the idea, though.
I do.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with the idea, but it needs to include referendums, and we need to have a clarification of what immediately is.
And it needs to, so I'm not a hypocrite here. I'm going to go with, I don't know where to go because it needs work. So do you vote for it or against it?
Well, the way you decide that, is it a step in the right direction, even though it's not good enough? And if you say that, okay, well, it doesn't apply to something that's brought up by the legislature, and because of that it's not good, well, if it applies only to half of it, which is the initiative process, it is a step in the right direction. So
So I'm thinking there's going to be 2 yeses and a no, because as I said, if this should be taken care of, those parts need to be in here. It needs to be done, and so I'm going to go with a no on this.
All right,
And then 2 yeses, correct?
all right. House Bill HCR 2050, short title, Energy Source Restriction Prohibition. This bill has already cleared the House, and it's headed for the Senate, but we don't have a specific time or what committee it would be on. But we're discussing it because it's one of these bills that is extremely important. It cleared the House along party lines, which tells you a lot. The vote was 31 to 29. And what the bill does is that it heads off California-style regulations that prohibit certain types of vehicles or appliances. For example, they're headed in California towards you cannot have a car that uses gasoline. It has to be electric. You cannot have grills. You cannot have gas appliances. All of these things that are happening in California, we want to head off in Arizona, and that's what this bill does. And obviously, the Democrats don't like it because all 29 of them voted against it. So with that in mind, I'm firmly convinced that it is a good bill because otherwise 29 Democrats would not be against it. So, reaction from you guys?
Go ahead, Archie.
Well, this is a concurrent resolution as opposed to a straight-up bill. And then again, it amends the Constitution, and I am, against using this kind of procedure to amend our Constitution. But even further than that, I am against this bill because it's totally unclear, vague, unintelligible, and ambiguous. So I totally do not agree with this bill.
And I'm going to agree with you on that. Yes, I agree with you. I think that there was an amendment made that I'm not completely understanding, and I agree. And Jose?
Yes, I'm 100% in favor of this bill. So, 2 no's, 1 yes.
2 noes and 1 yes.
House Bill HCR 2058. Short title is Legislative Districts Population Census Citizenship. This bill was introduced by Representative Heap, and it will be heard in the Senate Elections Committee on the 11th. And basically what it does is that it's in a roundabout way, if you distill what the purpose of this is that we need to know of the registered voters who are citizens in each district and who are not citizens. And eventually, what we need to do is to know who's really eligible to vote, because we don't want non-citizens voting. And that is coming. At least we need to know who is what. And that's and on the basis of that, I like this bill. But, Archie, what do you think?
I think we got a mess on our hands. Okay?
Yeah, I know we have a mess on our hands. We're trying to fix it.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about with this bill.
Okay.
All right, let's start with paragraph 14, which creates a lot of confusion here. During each year that ends in 0, the Independent Redistricting Commission or other officer or body as designated by the legislature. What is that?
What does that mean?
I mean, why don't we designate it now instead of waiting until sometime when the Independent Redistricting Commission says, we don't want to do this. So then where are we, right? So, I mean, let's get some clarification here. But the other problem, of course, is that, the federal government does a census every 10 years, and just like this bill says now, we're going to do our own. And where it really comes into problem is it says that our state census can only include U.S. census, which comes directly in
US
conflict with the Constitution and federal election laws. So guess what's going to happen, right? It's going to be declared unconstitutional and of no force and effect.
The problem we're trying to address here, we already have a situation where people are allowed to vote simply by saying that they're citizens.
You don't have to be a citizen in the state of Arizona to vote in federal elections. That is very clear.
And this does not change that at all. All it does is it identifies who is and who is not so that you can enforce what.
But nowhere in the bill does it say this applies only to state elections, that it does not apply to federal elections. If it states that, then you get a little bit of clarity to it, but it doesn't
Okay, so
state
your
that.
objection then is that it's not clear enough, not that it doesn't address a problem.
Well, I mean, there is a problem, the fact that it's not clear enough.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that creates a problem, and it brings it directly into conflict with the U.S. Constitution, well, 17th Amendment, actually, and federal election laws.
Okay, so you're against it, I'm in favor. Gloria, what do you think?
On the one thing I like about it is it says the commencement of the mapping process for the legislative district shall be the creation of districts of equal citizen population.
That's exactly what I said. Equal citizen.
Right.
Federal government says we don't look at that. We look at the people in the district. That's the 17th Amendment.
Okay. So with that being said, and with what you're saying, so I'm going to go with a no on this.
Okay, so I'll be the lone yes on this bill.
I think the concept is a good
good,
concept,
right.
but I mean, we're just our members of our legislature are just getting carried away here. That they're not looking at things, and this gets us back to my conference that we need attorneys in there to take a look at these bills and start talking to
attorneys.
people. Yeah. So.
As you know, Archie, we've talked about that quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I even wrote an article on it.
I know, and I'm going to keep yelling about it. I mean, our legislature is really screwed up.
Yeah.
I don't know if you recall, but I mean, last week, I think it was, we had a bill which says, we're talking about conflicts of interest when you're voting on hiring contractors after a school bill or a bond has been approved.
Right.
Well, but if you look at the rules for the House and for the Senate, they say, hey, conflicts of interest is just the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we want it.
Senate Bill SB 1182. Short title, Public Schools, Showers, Reasonable Accommodations. This bill is going to be heard in the House Education Committee on the 12th, and it was introduced by Senator Kavanaugh. It requires the provision of private showers for those students that are uncomfortable in communal showers.
I'll just tell you right now, I'm not for this bill.
No, I am not either.
Okay. I see a lot of problems with this.
Well, it's not a problem. Well, there may be problems, but what I'm looking at is, and here's what I wrote in my comments, folks. For decades, boys have showered in boys' showers and girls have showered in girls' showers. Those who were uncomfortable would wait until they got home to shower, okay? So why spend taxpayer money to accommodate what I refer to as aberrant behavior instead of using that money to teach skills necessary to become productive members of society? Folks, as much as I like most of the work that Senator Kavanaugh does, as much as I like most of what has been introduced regarding this sex and gender in schools, this one, I don't see the point in it.
No, and what I mean by I can see all kind of problems with this is all the children are going to have a problem with showering with all girls or all boys, and I can just see this a whole big can of worms.
I don't have any problem showering with all girls.
I'm sure you don't.
But that's not what the bill does.
No, if you're a boy, all I'm saying is that I can just see that if a boy is uncomfortable showering with other boys, it's going to happen with one person, then another person, then you're just opening a big can of worms.
Unless I misunderstand what this bill does, and I don't think I do misunderstand it, it does not apply to mixed sex showering.
Well, and that's what the thing is. This is what this is based on, that if it's a boy that is identifying as a girl, that he might want to, which probably wouldn't be, anyway.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
If a boy thinks that he's a girl, he does not need a separate shower. He needs a psychiatrist.
Right, but then a girl showering with a boy who thinks he's a girl, that's the person that they're going to want to shower separately.
Well, if it applies only to that, but that is not clear to me from reading of the bill. So
This is a whole can of worms.
Well, amazing you should say that. My note to myself on this is going to open Pandora's box.
That's right.
Right. But
All right.
to me, where I see the problem is the wording used is showers.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been in elementary or high school, but my recollection of when I was there, that if you wanted to get into a shower in a boy's bathroom, in a boy's room, being a male boy's shower, you had to go through the boy's bathroom.
Yeah.
So they only use the term shower, but in order to get to the shower, you got to go through the bathroom. So basically, this is saying you're going to provide the bathroom for, these individuals upon their discretion.
Yeah,
And
well,
I think that's opening Pandora's box. I mean,
the
we're just,
the idea may be good, but this is not a good bill.
No, not a good bill.
No, I think the concept is good. I just don't think that the implementation of it by the wording of this bill is good.
I don't even think the concept is good, so.
Yeah, well, again, if you're not comfortable in the environment that has been, when I was in high school, when I was in college, when I was in the military, I've showered with people numerous times in my lifetime, okay? And there's no problem there. The problem arises, as we're saying here, is when you mix the boys and the girls and so on. And for that, as I said, if the person doesn't feel comfortable, don't shower.
Don't shower.
Nothing. You may smell for a couple of hours, but you get you're okay when you get home and shower there. Senate Bill SB 1231. Short title: State Crime, Illegal Border Crossings. This bill passed both the Senate and the House, and it was sent to the governor, and she wasted no time in vetoing it. So, as it happens, it is the very first veto of the 2024 legislature. I don't know where to begin with this.
The only thing I'm going to say is that when I saw her little conference thing, and she said, and in it she says that it will be harmful for community and businesses in our state, and she said it was a bad bill, and so I would like to know what is her solution to fixing the problem, because obviously she has none. And
yeah, here's the letter, her veto letter. Today I vetoed Senate Bill 1231. This bill does not secure our border. Of course it doesn't secure the border. You're supposed to secure the border, you bitch, and you're not doing it. Now, the other one says it will be harmful for communities and businesses in our state. Huh? How could that happen?
no, it isn't, right.
And then says a burdensome for our law enforcement personnel and the state judicial system. Well, you can avoid all that if we had a secure border.
That's right.
The fact is that we don't, and that's what's creating the problem, and this is aimed at not fixing, but alleviating that problem. Well, the only good thing about this is that I hope people remember this come election time when she's up for re-election.
That's right.
That's the only
Bright side
thing
of
about this.
Archie?
So,
Well, I wanted to discuss this bill because I wanted to alert those of you out there that we have a real problem in the governor's office. And I think it is imperative that you start to contact your governor and let her know that you're not at all happy with this. The federal government, whether it is the Congress or the President's office or the Attorney General's office, are making no effort at all to protect our country from people entering our border illegally. If you start to check, you will discover that the majority of people entering this country has an education of 6th grade or less. The family housing units in their home countries have an annual income of less than $3,500. The people are not coming here because they're seeking asylum. They're coming here for an entirely different reason. We have MS-13. We have the new gang that is coming in from Venezuela. And by her action, Governor Hobbs has said, I'm totally in favor of all of that.
That's right.
And we're seeing these people now that they're panhandling in grocery store lots and Home Depot and Lowe's, and they're just panhandling everywhere. And I don't know if anyone besides myself has been paying too much attention to it. But if you look on the internet and you start to look at what the neighborhoods are saying, our houses are being scrutinized at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning by people walking up and down the neighborhood. We are having more house burglaries and stuff and killings. Look, Hobbs is not doing anything to protect the people of Arizona, and this bill would do that. And I wanted to discuss this because I want to tell you, as a member of the public, contact your governor and tell her to read up on this bill and remove her veto and sign this bill into law. We need it.
My advice is totally different. I agree with you on the reasons, but she's not going to listen to it. She knows exactly what the bill does. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's just evil. What we need to do is start working right now to find a good candidate that we could put up against her to get rid of her when the time comes. Ideally, we would recall her, but that's not forthcoming, I don't think. So we need to find out a good candidate to put up and beat her at the ballot box.
And I'm going to say I agree with both of what you said. Yes, we need to do that, but in the meantime, as like we talk about in these bills, in the meantime, you need to be calling the governor's office and do what Archie
Well, all you're
said.
doing when you do that, I mean, I'm not opposed to contacting the governor, but I can just imagine when she sees an email that comes like from me saying that you did the wrong thing, she said, oh, yeah, I did the right thing, yeah, because that's exactly
but
what she
it's-
wants.
Jose, I agree with you that individually she could care less about what I
Right.
think or you think or Gloria thinks. But if we have 1 million people that contact her and say, we
Right.
think you did wrong, then maybe she's going to say, well, maybe I need to start looking at things a little
well,
closer.
you're assuming
if I
that
want
she-
to stay in
yeah.
office and I want to be reelected. What I'm saying is, you as members of the public, you need collectively and millions of you need to contact Governor Hobbs and say, you did wrong.
And I'm sorry, I just don't believe that it's just Republicans that believe this. I know that there is a lot of Democrats out there that believe the same thing. Our state is being destroyed because of this. And
All right,
you got to
so-
speak out.
So I think we've vented enough on this.
Okay?
No, I can't ever vent enough about illegals coming into our country. I just can't do that. Yeah. No, I won't ever stop.
So we're all unhappy with what she did. And
Right. Very unhappy.
The public needs to stand up to this.
This brings to an end this week's edition of Arizona Bill Watch. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please make sure you tell your friends, relatives, and anyone else you know. And make sure you tune in next week for another fantastic edition of Arizona Bill Watch.